Southeast Asia's energy transition is no longer just about building more renewables. It's also about connecting power systems, strengthening regional cooperation, and using better data to make smarter energy decisions. As demand rises across the region, the challenge is balancing three things at once: energy security, affordability, and decarbonization. CNA's Elakeyaa Selvaraji joins us from Ecosperity Week at Marina Bay Sands. Ella, how important is regional energy cooperation as Asia races to clean energy transition?
Jen, it is becoming absolutely critical. Southeast Asia has strong clean energy potential, but countries cannot unlock it fully by working in isolation. Well, the region also needs stronger grids, more cross-border power grading, and also better coordination so renewable energy can move from where it is produced to where it is really needed. But this is also a balancing act. And governments have to accelerate clean energy deployment while also keeping electricity affordable and reliable, especially as demand continues to grow. And that is where data-driven policy making becomes so important. Understanding demand, grid capacity, investment that needs, and energy risks that is more clearly so policy decisions are not really just ambitious but also practical. And to unpack this further, I am joined by Tan, head of the Regional Cooperation Center at the International Energy Agency. Tan, thank you so much for joining me today. I've been speaking to multiple people throughout the day, and one thing we have all come together with consensus is Southeast Asia really talks about regional energy cooperation for many, many years. It is there, the talk is there. But what is really truly stopping countries from moving faster together?
Yeah, that's a great question, and thank you for having me. The IEA always says that cooperation is one of our key golden rules for energy security. And if anything that the crisis has currently shown, even more cooperation is critical. We've seen particularly here in the region, as well as in Southeast Asia, just how much an energy shock many thousands of kilometers away have really impacted the communities and the economies here. I think one of the best examples for where we need to see greater energy cooperation here is this region, is the ASEAN Power Grid. And as you rightly say, we have a lot of abundant energy resources in the region, renewable resources in the region, but they're not, unfortunately, geographically well spread out, and also, unfortunately, not located where the demand centers are. And that's where I think the importance of interlocking and interconnecting the power system so that you can bring low-cost supply together with the demand centers is critical. And as you say, helps to then meet the rising electricity demand. It helps to ensure we can integrate more renewables into the system in the region, and really importantly, enhance systems resilience. Now, politically, we've seen some great momentum on the ASEAN Power Grid. They signed an enhanced MOU last year by the ASEAN ministers. I think the challenge now is how do we translate this momentum into actual investment and implementation of projects? The IEA released a report earlier this year, Financing the ASEAN Power Grid, which showed that over the next 15 years, we need $27 billion to build the interconnectors that are foreseen in the ASEAN Power Grid. Now, this is a huge amount, especially when we consider that over the last 50 years, we've only invested $2 billion in cross-border interconnections. So how do we unlock this? And I think exactly as you said, we need more cooperation and deeper cooperation. And by the way, it's with all the stakeholders involved. So it's definitely the governments, it's the utilities, it's the regulators, it's industry, it's finance sector, as well as the ASEAN Secretariat, and bodies like the International Energy Agency, ADB and World Bank. How do we work together to really translate it and build that momentum into actual projects?
Absolutely. And, is the region's clean energy bottleneck really about just building renewables? Is really a question, or is it about grids and storage?
It's always an and, so you need both. So I think one thing is we do need to tap more into the actual renewable potential, which is very vast in this region. It sits at about 20 terawatts of technical potential for solar and wind. And let me translate that into something more relatable. It's about 55% of the total generation capacity in the region today. Right. That sits out there untapped. So if we could get just even a small fraction of that, that could really go a long way into, helping the region to have more secure, more affordable, more sustainable energy. The question, though, is we also need grid investment. And at the moment, grids are a bottleneck for all, it's globally, it's not just in this region. And for example, investment in grids sits at about 40% of the investments in generation. So how do we make sure that we bring that timing together a bit better, that there's better coordinated planning at a government level, to then start to make sure that we match that generation capacity, we then be able to get those electrons to where they need to get to.
Yeah, you told me some numbers over here, but what's really stopping us from tapping into it?
I think it's a combination of things. So one thing is we do need some better and coordinated policy and planning from governments. And I would say that there's a lot of good proactive action from governments in the regions, everything from setting good targets, so you give a signal to the market about how much renewables you want in the market, but then also you need the actual market mechanisms. Can you set up more power purchase agreements? Do the green auction systems like the way the Philippines has? Create a great demand signal like the Singaporean governments have here with saying, we will have 6 gigawatts of renewable energy imported into the region. This is what you need to then try and build that investor confidence to say, okay, we want to make that investment and we want to build those projects and work in this region.
You know, from all the experts I've been speaking to through the day, one thing is clear. They are saying there is a need for larger cooperation, as you've mentioned, not just government, but also a group of various sectors coming in hand to hand. But when you say that we need even more cooperation, then the gap is then becoming more and more evident. And events like Ecosperity is here to make this gap close. But do you think in reality, on the ground, what exactly is happening, Sue-Ern?
So I think firstly, value of talk and discussions, the relationship buildings. I've seen so many people having bilaterals and pool asides at Ecosperity Week. This is critical and we need to keep that momentum going, not just here in Singapore, but in other parts of Southeast Asia. So I think that that's a very important thing. But then I think the second thing, and something certainly the IEA has been looking at, is then working very specifically at the country level. You know, working with the governments to say, okay, you want to bring more variable renewables into the system. What are the specific barriers for your country? Because it is different. This is not a homogeneous region. What are the specific barriers in your country that we need to put in place to then unlock and encourage that investor confidence? So it is, I think, a bit of that national specific policy look as well.
We have one short question before we run out of time. But what is the biggest risk if regional grids and connectivity do not keep pace with renewable energy department?
I think the issue is that you don't then the region doesn't get a chance to realize, I think, this amazing economic growth potential and strong industrial policies and everything that the governments in the region want to do. You need energy for that. And so the question is, how can we do that better as a region and connect together better as a region?
And I think we just have to wait and see how better we get in closing that gap. Thank you so much for speaking with me. And that was Sue-Ern Tan, head of the Regional Cooperation Center at the International Energy Agency. All the key takeaways: Southeast Asia's clean energy transition now depends on execution, stronger grids, cross-border power links, and as Sue-Ern says, rules that give investors confidence. From Ecosperity Week at Marina Bay Sands, I'm Elakeyaa. Selvaraji, back to you.
All right, Ella, thanks for that update. That was Elakeyaa Selvaraji reporting live from Ecosperity Week in Singapore.